right, welcome to Films from the Phantom Zone, your podcast about failed and forgotten comic book movies, where we would usually talk about what do I usually say?
We would usually talk about failed or forgotten comic book movie? Is that what you say on these episodes?
Oh my god.
Holy shit.
Where we'd usually be discussing an old movie, but today we are doing a review. Berto, what review are we doing?
Eternals.
Marvel Studios Eternals just came out in theaters, not on Disney Plus, not streaming. All movies are going back to theaters, pretty much.
Yeah.
Time code's in the description as usual, but for reviews, what we usually do is we talk a little bit about like the background of either the movie or the comics. Then we get into a non-spoiler review, so we don't spoil anything. We just kind of talk about like our thoughts without, really getting into any of the details. And then at the end, we'll do the spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, that's fine. You can stick around, and then we'll let you know when we're going to start spoiling
We'll warn you.
Yeah. So in case you're stumbling upon this, you don't know if you're going to see this movie because it's been pretty divisive on the internet and on Rotten Tomatoes and whatever. We'll let you know when we start spoiling things. So for the background of these characters, honestly, there's really not that much to Eternals. It hasn't been there's not that many issues of it.
No,
honestly.
they're like D tier characters in the Marvel universe.
They're barely there.
People
ever.
don't know who they are.
Yeah. So it created it by Jack Kirby in 1976 after returning to Marvel. Did you know that Jack Kirby left Marvel at one point?
I didn't know he left.
So he was in Marvel from the beginning. Him and Joe Simon wrote Captain America, for fuck's sake. We talked about that in our Captain America episodes. And then works with Stan Lee for a long time. Sometime in the early 70s, Stan Lee creates the Marvel method. Did you ever hear about this? Of writing comics?
No.
So Stan Lee's name was on so many comics that he was basically writing for all of these that he just couldn't keep up, and it was too much work or whatever. So he came up with a new idea where he would come up with the overall story, kind of the beginning and the end, and be like, characters start here, they end here, because here's our overarching, story.
Okay.
Sends that to the artist, right? Then the artist could just draw whatever they wanted, basically. And they're kind of coming up with the story through their artwork. Then send that back to Stan Lee, and then Stan Lee would fill in the dialogue based on where the art took it.
That's an interesting way to do it.
So what happened was a couple things. For one, the comics became very visually engaging instead of just having like whole pages of dialogue for on and on and on or whatever. But at the same time, it also became a lot of the characters describing what they're doing at the time a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this power, which does this on you. And it's well, I'm going to block it with this power because of this
I'm
thing.
sure there was some new powers that were suddenly invented too because of this.
Right. But also they got the artists more involved in the storytelling, and it put a lot more pressure on the artists, but the artists weren't necessarily credited anymore.
Right. And at that point the artist is basically the storyteller.
Yeah. At least for a lot of
the
plotting. They're basically kind of coming up with what's going on in between the beginning and the end of each issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jack Kirby leaves around this time. Again, for these reasons, he's not really getting as much credit as he was. He has to do a lot more work. Marvel keeps on just kind of putting Stan Lee in front of everything. He's our man. He does it all, right? And he goes to write for DC. With DC, he creates the Fourth World and the New Gods, which is all of the background of Darkseid and his family, Granny Goodness, and all these people, right? Few years after that, so he's only there for 4 or 5 years, comes back to Marvel and just makes Marvel's version of the New Gods, which is the Eternals.
And it was short-lived?
Yeah, just got canceled very quickly, a year and a half. Then a decade later gets brought back, canceled again. Then a decade after that, Neil Gaiman got involved in the early 2000s for another short series. Wasn't supposed to be an ongoing thing. So it's really only existed in 4 volumes, and then just now it's back now in 2021, obviously because there's a new movie coming out, so obviously they want to kind of ride those coattails.
And these are actually obscure characters, more so than even Guardians of the Galaxy were.
Yeah. So what's interesting is two things for me. On the one hand, I'm glad we're this deep into the MCU. The MCU has to pull deep into their archives now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely giving us more interesting character, interesting plots, and stuff like that to work with now.
Yeah, and like not the usual roster of Marvel characters. You know, like things that are pretty much brand new to everybody. Not just like brand new to like people who aren't into comics, like brand new to people who are into comics, because there's only like 100 issues of this comic book.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about these guys.
Yeah, same. So the other thing that would have been really fun is that there was going to be a New Gods movie. And so this happens a lot in like Hollywood. One studio makes one movie, another studio tries to compete, right?
Yeah.
So when DC wants to make New Gods, Marvel wants to make the Eternals. These are very similar concepts, right?
Right.
And I thought it would have been so fun for those two movies to be coming out around the same time, because it's kind of like, again, they're just, the competition makes both better, right?
Yeah. I saw an article recently that said that the New Gods movie was canceled because of the Snyder Cut.
Well, did we talk about this when we were talking about Snyder? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
This happened afterwards.
Yeah, this article or news came out like recently.
This was, I remember I was really mad about it. It was like shortly after the Snyder Cut came out. So it might have been like April or May or whatever. The movie was by Ava DuVernay.
Okay.
She did that one movie for Disney. It's like a sci-fi. It's about a little girl.
Is it based on a book?
Yeah.
The something with time.
Yeah, that one.
Why the hell can't I remember the name? I know exactly what it is, but
It'll hit you in like 5 minutes.
Yep.
So just scream it out. So that movie, basically, like after the whole Zack Snyder thing, like it was kind of like on ice, and then the Snyder Cut included Darkseid and Granny Goodness, and now people are like, "Oh, cool! This might carry into the New Gods movie," and they're like, "Nope, shut that down. We don't want any of this." And it kind of sucks.
Wrinkle in Time, by the way.
Wrinkle, thank you. And so I was really sad that that got canceled, because like even if, again, we don't think we talked about this, because we talked about the Snyder Cut and we talked about the theatrical Justice League in 2 different episodes.
Yeah.
Those are in our back catalog if you're interested. But I think what kind of made me sad is like, just because you don't want to do the Snyderverse as depicted in this movie doesn't mean you can't make a different version of that movie. Like, we had only seen Darkseid for like a minute of screen time. You could have still done whatever you wanted with him.
Yep.
You just had to make him look like that. And he looked great. So what's the problem?
He looked like Darkseid.
Yeah, exactly. He looked just like the comic. So it's one of those things where it just pisses me off, because like that could have been a really good movie. Ray Porter, the voice of Darkseid, was attached to it. Like it was.
Oh shit!
Like, and again, it could have.
That could have been their way to connect it if they wanted to, or that also could have been their way to distance themselves if they wanted to by using the same characters and changing some.
Exactly.
Shit.
Exactly. There was no reason to cancel that. But
yeah.
Here we are. Thanks, DC. Thanks, DC.
That's probably Warner Brothers. But...
Yeah. Oh, sure. Right. Yeah, Warner Brothers. Also, both of them created by Jack Kirby. So that would have been a really fun thing to have in theaters. So the Eternals, it's not directly tied into Thanos like New Gods is with Darkseid, but Thanos does have a little bit of background with the Eternals.
Yeah, he's in the comics. He's like half eternal, half deviant, which.
Yeah,
the deviants are the Eternals, like enemies in this movie.
They're like their nemesis, yeah. So again, there's not much to the Eternals. So like you could really get into like the lore that they established in just, a few volumes if you really wanted to. I just didn't really think it was.
I think this movie changes it up a bit to make it more in line with the MCU.
Yeah, I think it works. But if you want to get into, because this movie has 10 characters, right? It has 10 Eternals members. It's an ensemble cast. And for me, I was going in, I think my concern was like, how is this going to work with 10 people?
Are we going to have enough time with them?
Yeah.
And so some get more screen time than others, obviously.
Sure.
But
so I went ahead and made a list real quick just so we can kind of go through them.
All right.
So we have Cersei, played by Gemma Chan. Her superpower, because all these, they're like imbued with a different power, which was kind of fun. Right. Also that like they all have something different going on or whatever.
Yeah. They got like a Justice League thing going on.
Yeah. She can change like any material she touches into whatever material she wants.
Yeah.
Icarus, played by Richard Madden. He's basically a Superman.
Yeah.
He can fly, he's super strong, and he has laser vision.
And I think Chloe Zhao, the director, actually said that
yes, and I want to get into that.
The Man of Steel iteration of Superman was actually the inspiration for Icarus in this movie.
I think she kind of also said that as like an inspiration for the movie, because she said that she liked how it treated like a mythology in that movie.
Yeah.
And so that was an inspiration, like in general, not just for
Which
Icarus, I think.
That might be part of why critics didn't really like this movie.
We're going to get to that. So that's Icarus. Then there's Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani. And also, by the way, some of these names sound familiar. All of these are characters that have some tie to a mythological character in real life.
Yes, and that's kind of part of their thing. Like, they've been on this planet for so long that they became like those characters from mythology.
Yeah.
Like humans are like telling stories about them.
Exactly.
Or sprites telling stories about them.
Yeah, right. So Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani, he can shoot little things out of his fingers. He goes pew, pew, pew.
It kind of seems like he makes like energy blasts with his hands, and he can just kind of do shit with that.
Yeah. It was kind of fun to see him just kind of pew, pew, pewing, though, right?
He does like finger guns.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Sprite, she's played by Leah McHugh. Sprite's the character that was gender swapped, right?
There's a few characters
right?
that are gender swapped, but Sprite is one of them.
So it would have been a little boy in the comic book. Also, like, they're all just like white dudes in the comic. So fuck it.
Well, it was what, the 70s, 60s?
Yeah. Like I saw a picture of the comic, and it's like, oh, cool.
And they're all like generic looking white dudes.
They all look identical. So like,
yeah.
Again, how are you gonna tell 10 people apart?
Like
give them some better attributes.
People are like, oh, don't do diversity for the sake of diversity. No, like it kind of needed to be done for this cast.
But when you say
and it works better.
No, hold on. But when you say like diversity for the sake of diversity, it's like making Superman Asian. You know what I'm saying? Like, someone's going to say, well, what's the point when he's like supposed to be like a Kansas boy? First of all, he's an alien. But not, you know what I mean?
Right. But he is also like Kansas, Mr. Kansas.
Sure. But these are all characters that no one fucking knows.
That's true.
So it's almost kind of like, no, do it for diversity's sake for a million reasons. One, they're supposed to like inspire like mythological beings from all over the world, first of all.
Which is not all white people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes perfect sense that, like, you know, for whatever reason, Kingo looks Indian.
Right.
And so where does he decide to spend most of his time? In India. That makes perfect sense. Anyway, so Sprite, she is like 13 looking, and I think
the actress was like actually 14.
Yeah. She was just kind of like built that way. And so she's perpetually like a kid, even though she's like, you know, thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And I already forgot what her superpower is. Oh,
she can like create illusions.
Yeah. Fastos, played by Brian Tyree Henry. I love this guy, by the way. I thought he was awesome.
He was great.
He mostly comes up with inventions.
His powers seem to be like imbued with like technology too.
Yeah.
Like seems like he can manipulate technology.
Maybe, yeah. It's kind of hard to tell, but like by a certain part in the movie, like he's fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's
using stuff that he built. And
yeah, exactly. But that's kind of his superpower, is that he's kind of the alien engineer, right?
Yeah.
Macarai, played by Lauren Ridloff. She's a speedster.
Yes.
So your classic...
I think this was a gender swapped character as well.
Okay, that makes sense. She's your classic Flash, Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Interesting twist they added on her, though. She's deaf mute in this movie.
Yes. And played by a deaf actress.
Is she really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, she is.
Oh, wow. That's news for me. Druig, played by Barry Cogan. He can like read minds and like control people.
Yeah,
seems to be like the most powerful one, by the way.
Yeah. Like a telepath, basically.
Yeah. Gilgamesh, played by Don Lee. He's just
stupid strong.
Yeah, he's just really strong. He's kind of like your Hulk kind of character, where he's pretty much endure anything. He can punch real hard.
He's a great cook.
He does some cooking. Gilgamesh is it's like an ancient Sumerian like legend or text or something.
Yeah, the name's super familiar to me. I'm not super familiar with that legend. Yeah, but I've heard it.
Ajak, played by Salma Hayek. That was another gender swap, I think.
Yep. I think pretty much all the women except like one.
This next one.
Yeah.
And maybe the first one. Maybe Cersei.
Maybe.
So Ajak, played by Salma Hayek, she has healing powers. She's very kind of like in tune with nature.
Yeah. And she is very much like kind of like the mother role for this entire family.
It's also the leader.
Yeah.
So
chosen by the Celestial. I'll remember it when I hear it.
We'll get to it because
there's a lot of names in this movie.
Athena, played by Angelina Jolie. So that is supposed to be representative of Athena, the Greek goddess of
Of
war.
war. And she's exactly what you'd expect. She's a powerful warrior. She's got futuristic weapons that she fights with. It's like a
And
spear.
they all do.
A spear that just kind of extends out of her.
Yeah, but she also uses like I think at one point she throws a spear, but then also uses like a sword. All right, that's all 10 of them. The other I think notable cast member is Dane Whitman, who's played by Kit Harington.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's just kind of like a human. He's just like a guy who's in the movie for a minute.
He's a really
Kind
good
of
guy.
Cool. Those are the characters. So let's just get into our no spoilers thoughts. I think the first thing we should do, though, is address the elephant in the room.
The horrendous Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah. It's weird because I think we should, in case you don't know, and I feel like if you're listening to this, you're pretty well in tune with what Rotten Tomatoes is. But I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what it is. Do you know what I mean?
I think so, yeah.
It's because what's I think important to understand about Rotten Tomatoes, it's an aggregate of a binary measure, right? It is the number of positive reviews over total reviews. So percentage of positive reviews. And so when a critic has to like submit their review to Rotten Tomatoes, and most of these critics are like published, like in a newspaper
Right.
or a website or a blog or whatever. But when they submit it to Rotten Tomatoes, no matter how nuanced their review may be, they have to say if it's a positive or a negative.
Right.
So like you could have all kinds of opinions, and we've done this on this podcast where we're like, yeah, I mean, this movie is good in these ways, but it's bad in these ways. And we're kind of struggling on whether or not we liked it. You know what I mean? But
Right.
like on Rotten Tomatoes, we would have to decide if it's like a
if
thumbs
we're
up.
positive or negative
Yeah,
about
exactly.
it. Yeah,
Like thumbs up or thumbs down. That's all it cares about. And then it aggregates all those numbers.
right. So a low percentage doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, this movie's terrible, stay away from it.
No, it means a large number of people gave it a negative review.
Yeah.
So, and for whatever reason. So like, that just means it's unpopular among critics, really.
Yeah.
Like, you could have a movie that is good, like what we would consider good. Because, I mean, good and bad, it gets really weird. Very subjective, I guess.
Yeah.
But we can have a movie that you would consider is pretty good, but because everyone agreed that, yeah, it's pretty good, but not quite, and I'm going to give it a negative review, it could have like a super low score. Also, the opposite is true. So you could have like a mediocre movie that everyone's like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So it gets a positive
That's
review.
probably what happened with Venom.
Okay, so that was what I was going to bring up. Venom versus the Eternals, right?
I think Eternals was way better
I think Eternals, and yeah, we're going to get to our thoughts.
in so many ways.
I think it's better in almost every single way. But it obviously, when you put them up together on Rotten Tomatoes, Eternals has like a 40-something right now, and Venom is like high 60s. So, I mean, they're close in score, but they look,
That's insane.
you know, like on a grade scale, you're like, well, that's an F, and this is a D or a C. So, I mean, I guess it's not that much better. But
But the interesting thing is also the audience score. I believe the audience score for Eternals last I looked was in the 80s.
yeah, it's pretty high. But like a lot of times, I don't stress out about the audience scores because then you get like bots and
True.
people
you have
review
bots.
bombing and all this shit,
Apparently they have new measures.
like to prevent that from happening.
Yeah. Like I guess in some way you prove that you watched the movie. Do you like scan a ticket or something? I don't know how the hell they do that.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like, I know for like Amazon, like the way they know you bought it is because
You
they
purchased
know
it
you
through the
bought it.
website.
Yeah. So like, I don't know with Rotten Tomatoes, but it gets weird.
Yeah.
But something else I noticed is that like a movie that executes on what it sets out to be, despite being like what we would say is like good or bad, is going to be met more positively. So I think that's kind of what happens with Venom. Like Venom never pretended to be like this Oscar contender. You know,
it was always going to be like, oh, hey, it's more of the same of the first movie.
it's Venom and Carnage. They're going to beat each other up for an hour and a half. Take it or leave it.
About on par with Transformers.
You know what I mean? Because it's short and because you don't have to sit through a whole lot of it and because it has some fun moments in it.
You don't really have to invest anything in it
Yeah,
either.
and we talked about that movie. We did a review for it. You know, parts of it can be enjoyable, even though overall it's a bad movie, we agreed. Reviewers are going to see that and go, well, that's what I was promised. It delivered on its promise. Positive review. Slap that on.
Right.
And if enough of those critics share that same thought, then that score can get pretty high. And people are going to see it and be like, oh, it must be a great movie. I mean, not necessarily. Like, they may have liked it because it delivered on what it promised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for this movie, it kind of promised to be like a new kind of MCU movie, right? Like break the formula,
In marketing
do
and
something
stuff,
different.
Yeah. And it does do that.
It does, but it's what I'm saying is I feel like it's trying to put itself in a different league of film.
Okay.
Like it's not trying to be a Marvel movie, it's trying to be like kind of this epic drama.
There's
right?
a lot of it that feels like a DC movie.
Yes. I want to get into that. And I think once it's in that realm, it's like, you know, if you're playing Little League ball and, you know, you hit the ball, people are going to stand up and cheer for you, right? Like if you're a kid, if you do that shit in the pros, they're going to be like, you're dumb, you're bad, get out of here. They're going to boo you out. So it kind of depends. Your performance depends on the league that you're in, right? And I think by Eternals trying to be a different kind of movie, trying to be like this big, take me seriously movie, reviewers are like, no, slow your roll. That makes sense?
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of times when like a movie, usually like a franchise movie, and this kind of falls in line with what you're saying, when expectations are subverted a little bit, critics seem to not really like that.
I think it depends. Sometimes
Despite
they do, yeah.
most of the time complaining that things are the same and they want their expectations subverted.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, what do you actually want?
Exactly.
Last Jedi comes to mind.
Yeah, sure. Well, Last Jedi had really good reviews.
It did. That was the opposite. It was the audience that was really divisive about that one. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, do you want something different or not?
Yeah, seriously. Like, what do you want? The other thing about, like, that score is kind of like, I think it's putting a lot of pressure on filmmakers to deliver something like very...
safe?
Yeah, safe, malleable, something tasty for everybody.
So Venom.
And not... I guess. Like, well, yeah, and Venom made a lot of money, too. So it's like, what precedent is Venom going to set for, like, movie making? You know, this kind of filmmaking, like...
Right.
Superhero stuff. I don't know if I like that. And Rotten Tomatoes used to be, like, a not well-known thing, like, 10 years ago. And now it's like, everyone... What's the Rotten Tomatoes score? Like... Boy got this on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, oh, people are on the fence.
Some streaming services will tell you what the Rotten Tomatoes score is right next to the movie.
Yeah, they'll put it on the DVD box now, too. They'll put a little sticker that's like certified fresh. So,
man.
Yeah, again, I think it's a kind of a dangerous precedent to just look at that score and be like, cool. Like, treat that as like the word of God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You read some reviews, see what people are saying, because I'll go in there and read some reviews, and someone says like a bunch of good things and then give it a negative review. Because again, like they're on the fence.
Right.
And it's a nuanced review. Like they've got some good things to say and some bad things to say. But overall, they were like, leaning towards bad. And then vice versa. So just, I don't know. Read reviews, I guess. Like read an entire review.
Yeah.
Or just go see the movie. Or just listen to us. Do that.
Yeah, we're the word of God.
Yeah, sure. So overall thoughts. We're in non-spoilers. Our opinions. We've talked about Rotten Tomatoes.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah?
It's weird though, because like, I wouldn't call it like a fun movie. Like it's not like a fun ride. It's long. It's slower paced. It's very much a character driven story. It's almost like a family drama, but on like a really grand scale. Mm-hmm. But I did enjoy it a lot, and I really do want to see it again.
I definitely want to see it again because I feel like I missed some stuff. It's really dense. Like there's a lot of exposition.
There is. I
think it's a good kind of dense. Kind of like Lord of the Rings. Yeah. You know?
Because there's a lot of lore and a bit of world building in this too.
Yeah. I'm not going to say this is the Lord of the Rings of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's closer,
similar.
It's closer to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I really, really liked this movie. I was not bored. Like, I feel like...
I was engaged the whole time.
I was very engaged. I was riveted. I was really into it. I was expecting something different than the MCU in a good way. And a lot of people are throwing that word around like, oh, it's different. It's different. That can mean a lot of things. And that can be interpreted as like a bad thing. But Marvel has a formula. And if you don't see that, it's kind of like, it's good and it's bad. Mm-hmm. Right? And it might be one of the reasons I really didn't love Shang-Chi. Like, I liked it a lot. But I was kind of like, I feel like it seemed like it was going to do a lot. And then kind of like stayed within the safe Marvel formula.
It was an MCU origin story, so.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I was kind of like hoping for something different. Same thing happened with Black Panther.
I thought Black Panther was kind of boring.
When they got Ryan Coogler, I was like, oh, they went and got like a real guy. They got like a good director. He's going to do something different. We're not going to get the same Marvel stuff. There is some of that in that movie, but for the most part, it's a super safe plot. It's a super safe story.
Yeah.
And by the end, it's just kind of like CGI punch him up, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's fine. It's good. But I wanted so much more.
Right.
You know, and I think here, Chloe Zhao just won an Academy Award for Best Director.
Apparently she had a lot of
No Man
freedom
Land.
for this movie, too.
Yeah. This might be one of the higher pedigree directors that they got in that kind of sense. You know, I mean, that's not to like say anything about everybody else. Like they're all mostly really good.
The Russos are great.
Russos are great. They also kind of found the Russos doing Community.
Yeah.
They made the Russos basically. And obviously John Favreau, but like,
yeah.
You know, they went and got someone who was going to do more of an artistic take.
Yes, and not in a Kenneth Branagh kind of way.
No. More of a Terrence Malick sort of way. Because when I watched this movie, I thought, this is MCU as told by Terrence Malick. As told by like Terrence Malick and like Zack Snyder. That's what I saw when I saw this movie. And when, to your point, when she went and said, oh yeah, my inspirations were like Tree of Life and like Man of Steel. I'm like, I see that 100%.
And I still think Man of Steel might be one of my favorite DCEU movies, just the way it is. And I was cold to it when it came out, but I warmed up to it eventually.
Yeah. Like on our rewatch.
Yeah.
Because we did an episode on it.
It was different.
Let me take a moment to plug. We did a Man of Steel episode with my good buddy Chris. That's up also. So check that out. But this does feel like, because you said it feels like a DC movie almost.
In ways, yeah.
Because it feels like it's outside of the formula. If you told me, like if it didn't have any of the Marvel connections, like, you know, they mentioned Thanos. It's in the trailer. They mentioned Thanos.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, there's a couple like very loose like ties or whatever.
But this is very clearly in that world. The blip is mentioned a few times.
If you didn't tell me any of that, I wouldn't have known this was in the Marvel universe.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it doesn't look like a Marvel movie. It doesn't feel like a Marvel movie in like a good way.
Right.
But again, to your point, does that subvert the expectations of the viewers? Like, are they expecting a certain Marvel charm and fun and like gleefulness that this movie isn't trying to do?
I think most people going into the theater were expecting that.
Yeah.
Especially with how like the marketing is. I don't know if you've seen any like the TV spots or the Instagram ads, but it kind of advertises it as just another Marvel movie.
Well, that's dumb.
They throw the jokes in there.
That's dumb because the trailer didn't.
No, the trailer was very like artistic, dramatic,
and like earnest to what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, marketing's gonna market.
That is true. The other thing is like I feel like the MCU has succeeded largely due to like they take like the superhero popcorn flick format and they've injected it with really good human characters and really good human moments. You know, from Iron Man to like Captain America to like all these movies.
Oh yeah.
That's what separates, I think, an MCU movie from like Venom. That like you don't really feel for these characters. You don't feel like they're real people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And if you want to talk about human moments, I want to talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy movies because those movies do it perfectly.
And that's a good point because it's the most ridiculous of the characters, right?
Yep. And I care about all of them.
Yeah. They feel like real people.
Yep.
The tree feels like a real person.
And watching them, it feels like watching a family.
Yeah.
Dysfunctional family, but a family. And I did get a little bit of that from this movie.
Absolutely. And whereas I feel that this is different in that this feels like a regular movie. As in like, you know, the movies that get nominated for shit. Like, not a genre movie. Like a regular movie, basically. It feels like one of those.
Like, this is a film.
Yeah, exactly. This is cinema. One of those injected with the superhero elements afterwards, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it almost feels like this was a movie, like just a regular movie about a family on a road trip or something. And they're like, okay, cool, but let's rewrite some of these characters. So one's fucking Athena, and the other one's like Icarus, and they get to fight. You know what I'm saying? Like that. It almost feels like that was how it evolved.
Yeah, I hate to put the term like this, but this one, out of pretty much any superhero movie or comic book movie in general, this one seems the most Oscar baity.
Yep, I wrote that down. I totally feel that.
I guess besides Joker.
Yeah, but fuck that movie.
I hate that movie.
I hate that movie so much. One day we're going to talk about how much we hate that movie. So I do feel that it's kind of more adult in a bunch of ways. You know, for one, it's not a plot-centric film. And I think that is part of the divisiveness. I think a lot of people, and by them I mean simpletons, like most of this plot is just moving the current roster to find another member. because it's kind of this broken family. They're all kind of getting back together.
They're getting the band back together.
Get the band back together. Again, I'm not trying to sound pretentious by saying like, oh, that's boring to some people, but like it's boring to some people. Like I tweeted, like pacing problems doesn't mean it's not paced for your 6-second attention span. You know what I mean? Like just because there's not an explosion every other scene doesn't mean that this has pacing problems. I think this movie's very well edited. I sat through all 2 hours and 40 minutes or whatever, and I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's also like not within a format of a normal superhero movie because there's no real villain to speak of. You know, and I don't think that's a spoiler because they didn't show a villain other than the deviants.
Yeah, like there's not like a main villain.
Yeah, but like this movie doesn't have to, you know, introduce a villain and then be like, they need their screen time so they seem compelling. Right. And then they're going to meet in the second act, and then it's not going to go well for the good guys, and then they're going to meet again in the third act, and the good guys are going to beat them. It doesn't have that to it. No. It's mostly a story about a family.
Yep, and like, they just happen to be trying to stop a catastrophe from happening.
Sure. It's almost like a man versus nature thing. Yeah. Instead of like man versus man.
And I think it works.
Yeah. So other things I really like, cinematography is beautiful. I love that.
This is one of the prettiest movies I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, you know, Marvel is going in that direction because Marvel has had some very pretty moments in a lot of their movies. You know, the Russos put together a lot of really good looking movies. But for the most part, like what moves a Marvel movie has been like the characters and the plot. And if they can sneak in some pretty kind of imagery in there, they will, but not at the expense of like slowing the story down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas I feel this movie really kind of put the cinematography as a higher priority.
Yeah.
And I also really like the music. I thought the score was really good.
Wonderful.
And it was very present. It wasn't like playing second to like the action, which is what the complaint for some Marvel scores have been.
Mostly like phase like 1 and parts of phase 2. Yeah. The music's gotten way better since then in all MCU movies, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't know. What else can we talk about before we move on to spoilers? Who's your favorite character?
My favorite character, it might be Kingo.
I love Kingo.
Kingo is great. Cool.
He's also played by like a very charismatic like comedian, you know?
Yeah. And Dane Whitman.
Why?
Just, I don't know. Like
he's just like an everyman.
He was really charming.
Hey, okay, sure.
Like that part where he's running to go help and he tries to like jump over the barrier. He's like, oh nope, can't do that. Just a regular guy.
Oh yeah, he's just one of us.
It reminded me a little bit of Dan from Venom.
I do like Dan from Venom. That's maybe one of my favorite parts of those movies. He was
one of the highlights of that.
He's just one of us.
Yeah, he's just a guy. But yeah, spoiler free, that might be all I have.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, I think it's a really good movie. It makes me think a lot about like Guardians of the Galaxy and Iron Man 3 and like Ant-Man in ways that like that was when the MCU was trying different things out. See, like they were trying to like stretch out the boundaries of like how far can we push the MCU? And
Winter Soldier too.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was kind of like, you know, can we make a funny heist movie, or can we make this like a buddy cop movie with Iron Man? Like, how far can we push the genre?
Can we do like a political thriller / espionage movie?
Yeah. And now those things seem quaint compared to the Eternals.
Yeah.
This was kind of like, again, can we push the boundaries even further out? Can we make like Nomadland MCU movie? You know what I mean? With these characters, like how far can we go? I'm interested in seeing like if this is that similar kind of experiment. What does this mean for like the future? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because despite the reviews, I think Marvel's really kind of standing by this. I think I don't know.
I hope so.
But I feel like Kevin Feige's not the reactionary type.
No, and I like the direction that this movie is potentially taking the MCU, and that they're going to try different things.
Absolutely.
You know, we're going to venture out a little bit more.
That's definitely what I want to see. I want to see do something different.
And I definitely want to see some of these characters return too.
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited for an Eternals 2.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to see an Eternals 2 that does a lot of, like, Thanos prequel stuff.
That'd be
like
interesting.
flashbacks, or maybe
maybe we see life on Titan.
Yeah, a section of it, like, set back then, because I think Thanos had his run. He had that first whole, like, part of the MCU, but I would love to see, you know, now that we're getting into characters around him.
Yeah.
Like more
we
of
can
that.
still like do some callbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me without spoiling the movie. Should we move on to spoilers?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So spoilers, the twist. There's a twist. Basically, the good guys are the bad guys, and the bad guys, are they good? Like, it's nuanced, right?
Yeah. So the Eternals find out that their purpose is basically, they're protecting humanity, but only so that they can become populated enough and advanced enough to provide energy to create a new Celestial.
Yeah. They're breeding a Celestial.
Yeah. And how is a Celestial born? Well, they come out of the planet like an egg.
Yep. Yeah, there is a lot going on. Again, with the lore of this, it opens on a crawl too.
Yeah.
Which it took me by such surprise that I like put my drink down. I was like, fuck, like I gotta like prepare my body for reading. Like I wasn't prepared for this, you know? It reminded me of when I saw Rogue One, which was the first movie in Star Wars that wasn't like a Star Wars episode.
Yeah, and it didn't have an opening crawl.
So like when it didn't have an opening crawl, I remember we were talking about this. I'm like, is there going to be an opening crawl? And we're like, we don't know. This is like a new thing.
Yeah. And it was like jarring because it just starts.
It just said Star Wars and then it just started and then the scene. And my buddy hit me and I'm like, what? And he's like, there's no crawl. I'm like, I see that. So this had the same exact effect, but inverse, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know I had to read, and luckily a lot of that information I kind of already knew going in because I did some minor research.
Okay.
But like it just, I don't know, it took me by surprise.
And the crawl basically like sets the scene. It talks about like, you know, hey, you know, the Eternals came from this place. Their enemies are the Deviants. It's very simple. And you actually find out later in the movie that some of that information is false.
What specifically? Because I remember saying one thing, I'm like, it confused me the whole fucking movie.
It says that they're from some planet. They're not from a planet at all.
That's what they think, though.
Yeah, that's what they think that they are.
Okay, gotcha.
Which makes me think that maybe the crawl was like, you know, from the point of view of an Eternal.
Did the crawl say that Ajax betrayed them?
No.
Okay, here's what happened. Again, I was a little...
I don't think so.
I was emotional that this was happening because I'm a little scared because I'm like, oh shit, I gotta read.
Oh, this is different.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, what are the implications? So I skimmed it real quick. And then at the end, the third paragraph mentioned Ajax, and I could have sworn it said betrayed them.
I think it just said that Ajax was leading their mission.
Okay. Well, I
gotta watch the movie again.
I was nervous
because that crawl actually went by pretty quickly too.
I was nervous. I misread. Okay, this is what happens to me whenever there's text on screen. I get nervous that I won't read it in time before it disappears.
That you don't read it in time.
That I don't. No, that I ended up reading. I read it too fast, and I'm like, oh, there was plenty of time. Let me go back and redigest it, and then it's gone. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so I thought it said that she betrayed them, and I basically accidentally spoiled it for myself because the whole movie I'm like, she's not betraying them. She seems to be like their leader. And
she never really. I guess she technically does.
And then she does sorta, and then I'm like, oh,
for the right reasons,
right. And then Icarus is the one that really betrays them.
Yes.
But what's interesting about this, and again, there's no clear-cut villain.
No, it kind of becomes like a little family feud.
It's more of a family feud because by the end, they're just all like on different sides of this debate. Some of them are fighting for it, but then by the end, they kind of all forgive each other.
As a functional family would.
Right.
One of them kills themselves.
Yeah, Icarus just flies right into the fucking sun.
Which is poetic.
Yeah, but what's funny about that is like the story wasn't written around him after he flew into the sun. He's flying into the sun in present day, which means he's just like, I might as well fulfill my destiny, right? And just go right into it.
Well, he was very, very conflicted.
Yeah. And
it was one of those things where
fair,
like he was like sworn to this duty. We find out that he finds out the truth of like the Eternal's purpose way before the rest of them do because Ajax tells him.
Well, like about 2 years, yeah.
Like 2,000 years.
No, I thought it was just whenever a couple of years.
It was whenever they left Babylon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, Mexico.
He said Babylon.
They left Babylon way before. Mexico was a few hundred years. Remember
Mexico,
they're all together
I
in
think Mexico is when they separated, but I think Babylon is when he was told about it.
No, because she was like, oh, he left me. I thought it was just a few hundred years or whatever. I have to see it again.
Yeah. The timeline's long, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, he finds out basically their true purpose before everybody else, and he's like lying to them all this time. I guess he kind of puts himself into exile too, because that's why he left Cersei, because they were romantic with each other.
Well, he leaves Cersei, I think, when he finds out, I thought. He goes to see Ajax and never goes back.
Maybe.
So that was after Mexico.
He left Cersei.
We're going to have to rewatch the movie.
Because it's implied because he says because he couldn't hold in this lie.
Yeah. So just to kind of like recap,
it's
again,
hard to explain.
It's hard, right. But I mean, hopefully you've seen the movie if you're listening to us spoil it.
Yeah.
But if you've sort of forgotten like we have, the Eternals are created by the Celestials. And
I gotta look up their names.
We've seen Irisham.
Irisham's the main one, right?
Irisham is the main one, the judge. There's like 20 of Celestials in
the
Marvel
one being
Comics.
Born?
Tia. Fucking shit, bro. Did I not write this down?
Tiamat.
Yeah. The Celestials created, or in this case, what was the first one's name again? Irisham. Irisham? Irisham?
I don't know.
Look it up real quick.
Okay, I'm looking.
We'll find it.
Irisham.
Okay. Yeah, it's basically what I said. Irisham creates the Celestials. They think that they're like sentient aliens, basically, that just can't age. But really what they're closer to are robots.
I guess like androids?
Sure.
Yeah.
At one point we see kind of like their little factory, like hundreds of them like being molded and created.
It's a little weird to see.
Yeah. When they need a new Celestial, they have to be born within a planet. So they basically...
They plant a seed.
Plant a seed or like plant an egg or whatever you want to call it.
They impregnate the planet.
Right. And then that planet needs to develop in order to create the energy and the knowledge for the Celestial to like be born, whatever. So they send in the deviants first to wipe out
predators that were
like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So that humans can properly evolve. Like an intelligent species can properly evolve. Then they send in the Celestials to help that species evolve, aka get rid of those fucking deviants.
The Eternals?
We don't need them anymore. Oh yeah, sorry. The Eternals.
And I guess the reason why they didn't need the deviants is because I guess the deviants kind of like went rogue and started killing the humans.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
I thought they served their purpose already, so they're like, fuck it.
No, they were like flawed.
Yeah. So Eternals are basically lied to about their purpose. After they finish with the deviants, they're basically just kind of hanging out. Stick around
until
don't get involved. Wait for further instructions.
Yep, for thousands of years.
Yeah, and so they're just kind of like bored, really. Like they're looking for purpose. They're looking for a reason to continue to exist.
And I like that you actually see that in some of the characters too.
Yeah, some of them like. I mean, you look at Kingo, he might be the happiest one because he found a purpose. He's like a big time actor and in Bollywood.
Biggest star in Bollywood.
He's had a dynasty because he keeps pretending to be like a different family member since his like great grandfather or whatever. And the ones that are kind of like lost are the ones that like don't have a purpose.
Like Icarus.
Yeah. And Sprite.
Cersei's just kind of like living life.
And I read a lot about how, like, this is kind of a religious allegory. The Celestials being, like, God created, like, angels and demons for the sake of, like, helping humans. Like, the humans, we're the children of God. The angels are nothing. Like,
they're tools of God.
Right, exactly. And so are the demons, basically. They're like fallen angels and shit. So they don't really have the same free will as we do. And they're really just here to, like, help us,
which is a little sad.
Yeah, a little, but
especially
you're not
since they're kind of sentient.
Yeah, you're not supposed to feel for them though, the angels and the demons. But that's kind of the allegory that they're painting, is that they're also kind of like looking for their purpose in a time when like God is no longer present. Basically, he's like, oh, I'm out.
Wait.
Yeah, you just wait. Chill. And now the angels are like, what do we do? Like, do we hang out with like the mortals? Like. But then there was also, I read someone pointing out that like there's a lot of like 7 of these Eternals.
Of course, it's 7.
Yeah, can be seen to represent like a different mortal sin.
Okay.
So you have like a sloth, and you have a glutton, and you have an anger, and you have pride.
Who's the sloth?
I mean, it's a loose theory, but like,
yeah,
pride would be Icarus. Envy is definitely Sprite, who straight up says that she's envious of Cersei.
And of humans.
Yeah. Athena could be anger. There's also a couple biblical quotes in it. There's in the beginning, and then at the end they say, the truth will set you free.
They do say that. Are we still in the twist?
Well, I think also the twist can also fit more into this whole kind of angels versus demon thing, where they're realizing that neither is good nor evil.
They just are.
And basically all deeply flawed in their own ways.
Yeah.
They're all serving a purpose that they're just now learning about. There's also that deviant who like becomes more and more sentient.
And then dies.
Yeah. I mean,
I do wish that was touched on a little bit more. If I had a complaint about the movie, it'd be that.
Exactly. Same exact thing.
Because he started to become interesting and then he got killed off.
Did he die?
Yeah.
Oh,
Thena like killed his ass.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Oh yeah, she sliced him into like a million pieces.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
But like still on the twist, it also brings us to like the third act, which is like a battle between like Icarus, Sprite, and the rest of the Eternals.
Yeah.
Except for Kingo, who's like, hey, you know, I think Icarus is right, but I'm not going to fight you guys over it.
And that was a great point.
I kind of respect.
Yeah. And I'm glad. I saw complaints like, oh, Kingo's not even in the end of the movie. Yeah, for a reason.
Yeah.
He agrees with Icarus.
But he also loves his family and does not want to fight them over
right.
it.
So he just bows out.
I think he's just kind of like, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. And that's completely fair.
It's fair because he believes what he was created to do. He believes in it.
It's hard to say like who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for a minute, I'm like, am I siding with like, who am I siding with here? Because they think, at least they're being told. I mean, they could be being lied to by the Celestials.
True.
But they're being told that they need to facilitate this. And yeah, it's going to come at a high price. But the Celestials create billions of worlds.
I kind of believe it based on the ending, though, because when he says, like, all right, so you saved this planet, I'm going to go through your memories and judge the planet and see if they're worth saving.
Yeah, that's interesting.
He didn't seem happy about it, but...
I really hope this kicks off into, like, some Fantastic Four stuff.
That would be cool.
Because at this point in the MCU...
this seems like some Fantastic Four stuff.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think at this point in the MCU, we don't need the Fantastic Four to be like this, you know, street-level, Earth-based superheroes. We got a million of those.
Yeah.
I want to see more of the cosmic stuff now.
And if we're bringing street-based heroes back in, like, start bringing back Daredevil. And
I thought you were going to say Ghost Rider. I was going to punch you.
He's not street level. He's more supernatural, which
yeah,
we will get to that while we're talking about this as well soon.
Sure. So some other last thoughts, because we were talking about kind of the historic context, the mythological context. There are references to, obviously, the city of Babylon, the myth of Gilgamesh, Enkidu. Apparently it's alternate history stuff, but it's in there.
Oh.
Apparently it's related to the name of Tiamat, which is the new...
the Celestial that was...
Celestial.
Aborted.
True. There's obviously Athena related to Athena and Icarus. Ajax apparently is supposed to be Ajax the Great, who is the mythological hero from Homer's Iliad. It's Ajax.
Okay. What about Phastos?
Hold on. Macri is reference to Mercury, because he's also the super fast messenger between the gods. Okay. Circe is Circe, who's a Greek goddess. Phastos is supposed to be Hephaestus, the Greek god of craftsmen and artisans.
That makes sense.
Yep. Eros.
Oh, we haven't talked about Eros yet.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah, but Eros, he's the Greek god of love and sex. He's the Greek equivalent of the Roman Cupid.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's also references to Excalibur. Yep. Remember when Athena
was the Lady of the Lake that King Arthur was obsessed with, and she also wields Excalibur.
Oh, you think Athena was also Lady of the Lake?
Sprite mentioned something about like Arthur was obsessed with you.
Oh, that's funny. Well, okay, so here's what I'm reading now. She could be Morgan Le Fay or also maybe Guinevere also.
Actually, yeah, any of those three.
It just fascinates
women
me.
She could be.
It'd be so fun, you know, because we're getting like Peacemaker now, which is a spin-off TV show on HBO Max based on
John Cena.
Yeah. But based on the Suicide Squad, right?
Right.
It'd be great if we got like Athena show on Disney Plus, just like 6 episodes.
You think Angelina Jolie would be down for it?
I don't know, probably not. But you know what I'm saying, like, or some of these characters, but like, Athena mostly because like. She seems to be more of the interesting characters throughout, like, history and mythology.
Yeah.
Like, episode 1, she's Greek Athena, you know, the goddess of war. And then episode 2, she fucking goes and hangs out with, like, King Arthur. And she's Guinevere, right?
They could do something like the way they did, like, What If? Like, it's, like, just, like, Sprite telling these stories. Because apparently throughout history, Sprite was like the storyteller.
Apparently Sprite's responsible for all of this making its way into like books and mythologies. That's funny.
And she would use like her illusions to tell the story, which Kingo mentions was the reason why he wanted to do film.
Oh, yeah. That's fun. The Ebony Blade, they mention, and then you see later
we see it
in
at
the
very
post-credits.
end.
That's also a comic tie into Merlin, but like the comic version of Merlin, I think.
Okay.
Then they also mention the Emerald Tablet, which is a important archaeological relic and has had a long history of occultist interest, including an association with the Philosopher's Stone, like the real-life Philosopher's Stone. By real life, I mean the real-life mythological Philosopher's Stone.
The one that Nicholas Flamel was trying to...
The real-life Nicholas Flamel.
The real-life Nicholas Flamel, not the
Harry Potter one, yeah. So, I mean, it's just like chock full of fun mythological references. I think that's also another kind of strength of the film.
Yeah, that it ties into so many of these things, and that if you get the references, it's actually pretty cool.
I mean, for a history nerd, they're probably just like full-on erection the whole movie.
The easiest one is probably the whole Icarus with the sun thing.
Oh, yeah. Icarus flew, wax wings, flies too close to the sun.
Yep.
Because he's overly ambitious. That's the cautionary tale there.
Yeah, which he kind of was.
Kind of, but not, I mean, yeah.
But also, like, he honestly felt like he was doing his duty.
Right.
So, did you want to talk about some of the relationships between the characters? Because there's some good ones.
Yeah, you mean like Icarus and Circe?
Icarus and Circe I thought was
like
the
the
weakest
one.
one, but it's also the main one.
But it's also, they're supposed to be the most, like, volatile. You know, because a lot of the plot is around their relationship.
But I think by the time we're seeing them in present day, it's like, you know, their relationship's already, like, done. Like, there's still feelings there, but they're not, you know, together. But then we also have, like, Gilgamesh and Thena, which...
Were they romantic, though?
I don't know if they were romantic or if they were just, like, best friends. Because I feel like it could go either way. There was definitely love there.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it was romantic love, I did see it more as, like, friendship, though.
Uh-huh.
And then we got Fastos and his husband.
Oh, yeah.
Which actually was one of the more touching scenes in the movie, I thought.
Yeah. This movie's good. The more I think about it, the more I like it. Because it's not plot moving, but it is thematic moving. Like, it does
and it's character development.
These people are trying to find their place in the world now that they don't really have purpose. They're immortal, so, like, time's not really an issue.
Right.
And he went out and found a husband and a child.
And this was after he had already given up on humanity, because we get a flashback to right after, was it Hiroshima?
Yeah, he helped like create like the
atomic bomb, and he's there like in the blast site, and he's crying and saying that like these people don't deserve to be saved. He's so upset by this, and this was one of the biggest tragedies in all of mankind, all of World War II, really,
for sure.
And he's like at this point given up on humanity. Then come to present day, he has a family. He has a husband that he loves, and he has a child that he cares about very much. He has purpose again.
Yeah. But it's also like, and some of them pointed at this, is like, this is fleeting. Like, mortality is fleeting. Yeah. We've been alive for 7,000 years. Like, what does this mean to you? Like, they're going to be dead in 50 years. Right. Then what? Do it again? Like, I mean, for us, it's like, it would be like if you adopted a housefly and you got attached to it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's so weird because it's like, it's so nice to see him happy, even if it's in his lifespan only going to be for like basically a second.
Yeah.
Which also makes it sad.
Absolutely.
And then we've got Druid
and Malachi.
Is it Makari or Makarai?
It's Makarai, sorry.
Makarai? They just have chemistry.
So, fun fact, that wasn't part of the script.
Really?
Their romance, they wrote that in because the actors had good chemistry.
Because like when they first see each other again after a long time, the first thing they do is they hug, they touch foreheads. And, like, Druid just looks so happy to see her.
Yeah.
And he was previously just this angry little fuck.
Yeah. He's definitely, like, the anger. If he's like a deadly sin.
But by the end of the movie, he grew on me. I ended up actually liking him quite a bit.
I think he also kind of represents kind of that whole ethical debate of, like, what amount of interference in human life is okay. Yeah. Because he's the one that he can control minds.
Right. And he's like, I can stop war right now. Yeah,
but you're also not letting them learn.
Correct.
And obviously the Celestials want that to happen because at one point someone says this, war creates more population.
More population and a like boost in technology.
Yeah. So war is good for them. They want wars to happen.
but they personally don't. And that's why they're so conflicted about it. Like,
right, the Eternals don't.
The Eternals don't. No.
Because they're good people.
Right.
It's a good movie. Listen,
there's a lot of nuance in this movie.
That's the thing. People don't want nuance. They want explosions.
But yeah, like the relationships between the characters I really like. Even Cersei and Dane. They have like kind of like a standard boyfriend-girlfriend thing going, but like it feels real. Okay. Like she's like trying to FaceTime him and stuff while they're on their trip, you know?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. And the other ones are like, why are you even using a phone? Like, we're so far more advanced than that.
And then she shows Icarus like a Snapchat filter, and he's like, oh.
The post-credit scenes. You want to get into that?
Yeah.
I didn't really look too much into these characters, but there is something really exciting about this. It almost feels like a Phase 1 movie where there's like a Marvel reference, and I'm like, oh, like, what is this? Like, I don't know, you know? Like, who are these characters? And a lot of these post-credit scenes for a lot of this other MCU stuff, it's been with established characters. So it's just kind of like their post-credits are like, oh, cool, where do their stories go next? Whereas this is more like, who is this? Like, what is this new thing?
Everything here is like new.
Yeah. And I think that's the most exciting part. Like,
we don't see any characters from another MCU movie.
Yeah, bravo, thank God.
They're referenced, but we don't see them.
Yeah, who needs it? Like, it might have been fun, but like for a minute, but like you didn't need it.
They didn't have a place in it. No. Maybe in a post-credit scene, maybe.
So like at one point when they're on the dinner table, Kingo mentions that like he played with Thor when he was a kid.
Yeah. He used to follow him around.
And I'm like, that would have been really fun to watch. Because Thor's like 5,000 years old or something anyway.
Yeah.
So like there's some overlap there because they got here like 7,000 years ago. That might have been really fun in like like a post credits or or whatever. But first post credit scene, if I remember correctly, is Eros, right?
Yes.
Played by what's his name?
Harry Styles.
So like,
the crowd went wild.
Yeah. And I knew he was in this movie. But if you put Harry Styles in a lineup with 5 other guys, I would not be able to point him out.
And
I
it's
just
like
don't
the only
know
other
him
movie I
very
could
well.
think of that he was in was Dunkirk.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, one of the guys in it.
I didn't know he did that much acting.
I don't think he does much acting, but like he has been in other movies.
Gotcha. Yeah, but we were sitting next to some girls who just went fucking nuts.
They also went nuts every time there was anything remotely romantic going on in the movie.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, sex scene.
Oh, yeah, there's a sex scene.
Cool. Marvel's first sex scene.
Iron Man 1 had one, though.
No.
Yeah, they had banging that reporter.
Yeah, no. They woke up next to each other after the fact, and you can deduce that they had sex.
I think you see some of it. They make noise, at least.
I
remember Tony Stark going like, ah, ha, ha.
Yeah, but they're not. No, they're not having sex though. They're just like in bed, and then like
messing around.
They're just messing around, making out, and it cuts to them the next morning.
This is like actual sex.
Oh yeah, there was like thrusting,
like, removal of clothing. Yeah.
So we're talking about. Oh yeah, Harry Styles. Yeah, cool. Whatever. He's gonna be in a movie, or he's Eros, the brother of Thanos.
Brother of Thanos, also known as Star Fox.
Star Fox.
Not the Nintendo character.
To a barrel.
That's Peppy that says that.
Well, in this, Pip would have said it. Is it Pip?
Pip? Was it Pip?
I think it's Pip.
The leprechaun looking guy?
Little, yeah, played by
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
Who also plays Agent Koenig in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, but none of that matters, Bert.
It matters.
He's also... Oh, fuck. What's that show called?
Oh, MODOK.
MODOK, thank you.
I haven't seen that show yet.
It's pretty funny. He's MODOK.
Is that show MCU canon?
No. But it is Marvel. and it's a fun kind of one-off
It's like an
thing.
adult like animation, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's the same style as
Harley Quinn?
No. It's the same style as fuck, what's that show? What was Seth Green? No, Seth Green.
Robot Chicken.
Robot Chicken. Yeah.
Oh, is it like a bunch of shorts?
It's not shorts, but it's that animation style.
Okay.
It's like stop motion with action
like,
figures and things like that. Yeah.
Not claymation, but just stop motion.
Yeah. But it's good.
Okay. I mean, I'll have to. It's Hulu, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Anyway, Eros, cool. It's more shit.
Yeah.
I didn't really. I mean, I looked up a little bit about who he is because I wasn't too familiar, but he's another Eternal.
He's another Eternal cosmic character.
And apparently so was Thanos. Thanos was also an Eternal.
Sort of halfway.
Yeah, but he had a little bit of deviant in him.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying I want to see maybe a little bit more prequel.
I want to know
A
what
little more
Thanos was like as a
flashbacks.
kid.
I want to see a little bit of, and I hope with this Arrow stuff we get a little bit more of that because he's even introduced as like brother of Thanos.
Yeah. Apparently going to be important going forward, it seems.
Yeah. So I want some flashback juices. I want some Thanos background. Like that'd be really interesting. And in a fun way to kind of tie all this together.
Yeah.
You know?
And we have our second post-credit scene.
Your boy Dane.
My boy Dane Whitman.
Here's the thing. He's like supposed to be the regular guy, so I was just hoping he'd just be a regular guy, and at the end he's like, actually, he's a superhero too.
Sort of.
He's got the sword.
Yeah, Dane Whitman is
The Black Knight.
The Black Knight in the Marvel Comics. Apparently at some point, not Dane, but like the Black Knight before him, which I think was like Dane's uncle. I think it was his
family.
uncle.
Yeah, it's like
which his uncle's actually mentioned in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When Cersei's FaceTiming him because the world's about to end, she's like, oh, you always said you wanted to make amends with your uncle. Now is the time to do that.
Oh.
But apparently his uncle fought Iron Man at some point. Maybe not in the MCU, but in the comics.
Yeah, I don't know if that lines up, but yeah, maybe.
But he's the Black Knight who is more of like a supernatural type character. Mm-hmm. So it kind of falls in line with like Blade, Ghost Rider.
The Ebony Blade has like souls of people.
Yeah. Kind of like Katana.
Kind of like Katana, yeah.
This is Katana.
She's got my back. Anyway.
But we do hear a voice at the end of the movie as Dane's about to grab the sword because he's like conflicted about like picking it up. Yeah. The voice just says like, are you sure about that, Mr. Whitman? And we don't know who that voice is, but a lot of people think it's Blade.
We do know it. The director said it's Mahershala Ali.
It is?
Yep.
Okay, so Blade is in the MCU now.
Yeah. That was 100% Blade. Mahershala Ali.
Okay.
Although it kind of sounded like also
Jeffrey
Wright. I was like, is the Watcher getting involved again? How easily he gets involved now.
So it was Cottonmouth from Luke Cage.
Correct. Yeah. One of those.
Also, there's 3 people in this movie that have other roles in the MCU or MCU adjacent. We have Blade / Cottonmouth.
Blade, Cersei.
Cersei was in Captain Marvel,
yeah,
as Minerva.
But she was all blue and shit.
Yeah,
so
she was a Kree.
Easy to like. I didn't recognize her at all.
No, and Patton Oswalt is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, but doesn't count.
It also doesn't really conflict with anything though, because this is a CG character.
Yeah.
The only one that would be like, hey, would be probably Blade. Like, didn't I see you get killed in Luke Cage?
Yeah. He was a good villain, though.
He was way better than Diamondback.
Yeah. Agreed. The show, like,
the show
lost me after they killed
plummeted after they killed him off.
And what are the odds they're both named after snakes, too?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Because they're like, they didn't know each other. It's not like they were in a gang together.
No.
It was just a coincidence.
But yeah, that was a good show up until that point.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, anyway, let's wrap this up. Overall, really good. I said it.
Talk about those.
Oh yeah, there was. They also made reference to Batman and Superman in this,
like directly.
Yeah. So this is kind of the first.
So DC Comics exists in the MCU.
It does now. Also, both comic universes exist in each other's comics.
Those universes have also crossed over before.
They have crossover a couple times. They've done intercompany crossovers for. It was
called like Amalgam Comics.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In DC Comics, they make references to Marvel Comics sometimes, like as comics.
I think I've read Marvel Comics that make references to DC Comics. Yeah. It's funny how that works.
Yeah. I feel like it's just a very cute kind of like, hey, I see you. You know? It was almost kind of fun that like there was almost just as much DC referencing as there was Marvel referencing.
Yeah.
Because we got 2, maybe 3 DC references, because I think they say Superman like twice.
Yeah.
Batman, and then obviously they mention Alfred. Yeah, really, we heard Thanos once and Doctor Strange once, and that's kind of it. So I'm like,
and Dane Whitman really wants to get turned into a giraffe.
Yeah. But again, like if you told me, if I didn't know what this was, and you're like, oh, this is in the DC universe, I'm like, hey, it looks like a DC movie, so sure, yeah. So
yeah, I mean that might be it for our spoilers.
Yeah, again, really good movie. It is definitely a formula breaker for Marvel, and I think that's the main reason some people didn't like it. But I think it's hard to, at least for me and people I've talked to, it's hard to not like this.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer. It's a little bit slower paced. It's mostly a character movie, but that's good too. Like, we can do different things also, you know?
Yeah.
The Marvel Universe doesn't all have to be the same kind of movie in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I guess my final thoughts are great movie. I think you should definitely watch this. I didn't mention before, the action in this movie is great.
Yeah, agreed.
I really like, and this doesn't just pertain to the action, but the way each character uses their powers. They use their powers in so many different unique ways.
Yeah.
And that's something that I also really liked about this movie. Like, they weren't afraid to think outside of the box with some of the stuff that they have these characters do.
Yeah. Well, it's like kind of like with Cersei, I was kind of like, what's she going to do in a fight? And then I see it, I'm like, oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And then seeing the speedster move looked really cool, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, stuff like that was just really good. My only complaint with this movie, I think, was one, we had that deviant that it seemed like they were going to go somewhere with him, but they didn't. And there are times... That was Bill Skarsgård?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the deviant.
Pennywise.
Yeah.
And my other complaint would be, like, there were parts in this movie where it did feel like they were trying to put too much in. With as long as this movie was, it also felt like it wasn't long enough, you know?
Well, I think, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but I was worried that how are you going to do 10 characters justice, and I thought they did it very well.
They did it very well, but it still left me, like, wanting a little more.
Okay.
Because a couple of the characters were, like, just kind of glazed over a little bit.
I think Macarai was
the one
that, yeah.
And I do wish we saw a little bit more of, like Sprite had, like, her own little arc, but I wanted to see more of that conflict with her.
Okay.
Oh, and we did see after the credits it said the Eternals will return.
Yeah, I think naturally there's going to be an Eternals 2. Today on Twitter, Galactus was trending, which happens all the time. Well, but it doesn't mean anything. But most people were saying, like, introducing Galactus in an Eternal sequel would be really great.
Yeah, and also the way they had the Celestials show up at Earth at the end there looked very much like how they would do Galactus.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
And it was threatening as fuck looking.
I like how you just kind of, like, plucked them all up. Like,
yeah.
He's obviously the most powerful thing ever, so, like, why fuck with him?
And everybody saw him, too. They were like, what the hell was that?
That was fun. I'm glad London didn't get fucked, because when they showed London again, I'm like, man, London gets fucked almost as much as New York in the Marvel Universe.
The Dark World.
Yeah, and Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, fuck, we're back in London. There was only a small fight with a Deviant, and that was it. So, this has been our review for the Eternals. We do this pretty much every time there's a new movie coming out.
Our next one will be Spider-Man.
But yeah, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to your podcast app. Thank you to that piano dude for our musical intro. Guys, make sure you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or anywhere else that allows you to leave ratings or reviews. That being said, all these episodes are available on YouTube, just as podcasts. If that's how you like to get your podcast, like to throw up a Chrome tab while you're working from home or whatever,
yeah,
you can do that.
Throw it on your TV.
Yeah, sure. You can find us on Instagram at Films from the Phantom Zone, and you can find us on Twitter at Films from PZ if you like to argue with us. We're also on TikTok, and yeah, that's it. At Films from PZ.
Are we on another platform?
I had to think for a second. There's just too many things. But please tell a friend. And if you've told a friend, thank you so much for telling a friend. Great way to spread the joy. Spread me and Berto around a little bit.
Yes.
Oh yeah, all these episodes are streamed live. If you want to hang out with us, if you want to be a part of the show, we are on Twitch right now.
Yeah, if you want to play pranks on us.
Oh yeah, we're cutting that bullshit out. We got it pranked. That's on twitch.tv/filmsfrompz, and we stream these episodes when we record them most Monday nights. So we've taken some Mondays off. One time we had to do a Sunday. For the most part, Mondays around 9 p.m. Eastern time, we're here. So come join us, hang out, talk to us in the chat, be a part of the show. It's super fun. That's it from me. That's it from Berto.
Yeah, that's it from me too. I got nothing.
And we will see you with our next episode, our regularly scheduled episode, and then when we review Spider-Man No Way Home. Do you like that poster? I don't like that poster.
It looks kind of fan arty.
It looks very fan arty, very Photoshop-y. Don't like it. I get what they're doing. I get it.
I get it too. It's definitely a fan servicey poster.
Oh yeah.
Intentionally.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anyway,
All right.
bye.
Bye.